taking it through into our toy soldier, which is an easy, effective shoulder mobiliser. So standing tall, engaging those deep core muscles by pulling the pelvic floor in, abdominals in, and then just lengthening through to the fingertips, one arm up and squeezing, actively squeezing the other arm down and back. Into a nice little sequence of standing rotations to mobilise the spinal column. So we're just going to lengthen through into the fingertips, lifting that back heel. So we think about lifting out of the rib cage, so mobilising that spine, and then just release and relax, lose any tension out of the neck and shoulders. Keeping the hips still and steady, we're now going to really draw in through the waist and just rotate out of the rib cage. So we've gone from that big range of motion right the way through to that smaller rotational range. Take it through from our V stretch into a monkey squat, so a lovely opener and awakener for the body. So we're going to let the arms float up through to the sky, lifting up through the rib cage. So think about a good strong core, pelvic floor engaged, and lifting up. And the aim here is to let the ribs expand, but without overarching the lower back. Then going to add on a lovely squat, so getting those hips, knees and ankles mobilised. So you should start to feel the blood pumping as your body wakens up. We're going to have the hands behind the head, drawing together, and a lovely full inhale as you squeeze those elbows wide. And again, focus on the ribs opening. It's all about getting that movement, lifting the breastbone, releasing pressure off the lungs and stomach. Standing hip mobiliser, a lovely one to get some movement through that hip joint. So thinking about standing nice and tall, a little bit of connection through the waist, and you're just going to try and draw a figure of 8 lying on its side out of the knee. So our aim is to mobilise the hip, almost like you're oiling that hip joint. Switching sides, so you're only aiming for 3 or 4 on each side, and then take a rest. Here we have a standing lateral reach, a simple, easy to do release for the side of the body, an area that's often underlooked and can get really tight. I want you to lift over, and I want you to think ribs lifting, so not just the shoulder but the whole side of the body lifts. Now if you can, use the other hand to help lift and just extend and almost gently ease out of the ribs. Good standing job. Roll down. This is a spinal mobiliser and also a hamstring stretch. We're going to start with a lovely big lift up, opening up the chest. So think about that connection through pelvic floor. We lift and lengthen over. So think length through the spinal column. Please soften those knees if you're tight at the back of the thighs and those hamstrings, or through the lower back. Try and keep a little bit of abdominal connection throughout. So think abdominals here, lift up and in, so scooping up towards the spinal column. Remember, it's that lift over, so let the body lengthen over, as if you're taking your back on that lovely journey. As you come up, think bone by bone, piece by piece, lengthening up, and finish standing tall. Starting in all fours, ready for Pilates pointer. This is an excellent exercise to start to ignite the muscles along the back of the body, as well as challenge those core stabilisers. We're going to extend the opposite arm and opposite leg away from one another. Now think about pushing away rather than lifting up too high. The goal is to keep the pelvis still and steady. Try and have the thumb pointing up to the sky and really lengthen into the toes and the fingers. Think about your abdominal muscles, so don't just let the back sag, but draw up through the midsection of the body. We're then going to stretch out, releasing back, pushing the hips towards the heels into child's pose. Then going to let the hands go off to one side of the body, so walking them over to one side of your mat. You should feel that stretch down one side of the body. And then draw the abdominals in lightly, walk the hands over to the other side of the mat, and you'll feel that stretch transfer. Abdominals in, and then rolling back up to seated. So taking it into our all fours, thread the needle. So this is a fantastic exercise. We start in all fours, hands underneath shoulders, knees underneath hips. Think about that light abdominal activation. And then we're going to reach through one hand between the gap of the hand and the other knee. And think about that control. So you're really lengthening through, pushing through. This is fantastic to open up from one shoulder to the opposite hip, an area we call the posterior oblique sling. It's sort of a motorway of connections and cause dysfunction through the back, neck and shoulder area. So this is a great one to release off that tension. Still thinking about a lovely breath, exhaling on the effort, and then when you're finished, sitting back and stretching out. Half roll back from seated. This is a preparation move for our full Pilates roll up. It's great to get those abdominal muscles woken up. So sitting tall, draw up a little bit of the pelvic floor as you inhale. As you exhale, simply tuck the pelvis under and then sit nice and tall. So it's a lovely rocking back through the pelvis. You may not get much movement through in that lumbar spine, so please don't force it. It's just about tucking those sit bones under. Try and sit nice and tall at the end of each move so you get that lovely spinal elevation. So think about lengthening the spinal column. Hands behind the back of the knees to give a little bit of support, but of course you can take the hands away for an extra challenge. So for this exercise, we're going to set up our neutral spine and then challenge our ability to hold it. So taking into a few pelvic tilts here. So just tucking the pelvis under and then releasing away, and then coming through to that position where you feel balanced. So if you had a glass of water across the middle of the body, that you would be holding it still and steady. We're going to take the arms up above the chest, and we're then going to slide one arm and the opposite leg away a length of the mat. And I want you to keep the tension in the leg, tension in the arm, so lengthening through. Think the precision of your movement. Your goal as you do this is to keep the pelvis still and steady. Lovely big full breaths going through into the lungs and through into the rib cage. Neck stays lengthened, back stays lengthened in that lovely neutral alignment. So again, you're just challenging your ability to maintain this core control. Now we're going to test our core strength and really ignite those deep core stabilizing muscles with our knee drops. So finding your neutral alignment, so it's that alignment where you feel balanced, as if you had a lovely glass of champagne across the top of the hips. And you're literally going to drop the pelvic floor, and as you exhale, let one knee float out to the side of the body and then come back to centre. So your focus here needs to be on what's happening around the front bony part of the pelvis, so keeping everything still, and then thinking about drawing the ribs down. So it's almost like this lovely pressurised container that's your abdominal cavity, and it stays rock solid and stays absolutely still and steady. Try not to put any tension into the neck and shoulders, and also think about the shoulder blades being drawn down into the mat beneath you. As and when you feel that you can do this comfortably without any wobbling, you can progress it on to a tabletop position. So this is where our knee is lifted above the hip. So you might need to re-stabilise. So think lifting up through the pelvic floor muscles about halfway, re-engaging and igniting those deep core muscles, almost like you feel like you're pulling the hip bones towards one another. We're going for 3 repetitions on one side and then 3 on the other, and it may feel very different one side to the other, so you might have to keep re-engaging and re-stabilising through those deep core areas. Well done. Adapted chest lift. So we're starting lying on our back with the fingertips into the lower arch of the back. Take a lovely breath in, draw up the pelvic floor, and as we exhale, we slide the ribs to the hips, lengthening up and over. Now let's switch the other leg, lengthening out. So your goal here is to draw the ribs down, and you're starting to peel the shoulder blades off the mat, switching the lead leg with each repetition. Try and keep the chin gently tucked in so that you're lifting out of the breastbone. Your goal here is you should feel the abdominals flatten and you should feel the back lengthen. So it's a lovely back safe exercise to do to start to ignite those big 6-pack muscles, your rectus abdominis. Just keep switching at your own pace, and again try not to take that tension into the neck and shoulders. When you are finished, just rotating the head side to side to release any tension. Shoulder bridge. This is a fantastic exercise for getting your back moving and powering up those buttock muscles. Starting in neutral, take a breath in, draw up a little bit of the pelvic floor muscles. As you exhale, you're going to squeeze those buttock muscles and lift the hips up just to where it feels comfortable for your back. Some of you may lift nice and high, some of you may only get the lumbar spine away from the floor, and that's absolutely fine. Be mindful of your upper back position, so squeezing the shoulder blades into the mat beneath you, and this can be helped by turning your palms towards the sky. Focus on 5 or 6 fluid repetitions. Try not to veer off from side to side where your back may be a little tighter. Use that lovely flow of breath, inhaling through the nose to prepare, exhaling through the mouth as you draw up. Shoulder rolls. A fantastic release for the upper body to release tension out of that neck, shoulder area, and also to get more movement through the upper back. Starting lying on your back, you're just simply going to lengthen the arms up to the sky and reach side to side. Now I know you want to bend your elbows and bend at the wrist, but please try and keep the elbows and wrists lengthened so that the movement comes from that upper back area around your scapulae. I want you to think about keeping the pelvis still as you can so that you really isolate that movement. We're aiming for about 12 reps here, team. So keep reaching, and it's more about that sort of mobility, that rocking side to side, than trying to push too much from one side to the other. It should feel comfortable through the neck and shoulders, and if there's any discomfort there, then you do of course take a rest. Pilates half scissors. So we're going to find our neutral setup, anchor down through the pelvis, and then we're going to drop the pelvic floor and exhale, draw down the ribs, lengthening one leg up to the sky, and as we exhale we're going to push the heel down to the mat. So we've got a lovely dynamic hamstring stretch at the back of the thigh, but you also challenge your ability to keep the pelvic girdle still and steady. Use that breath to help you stabilise. That lovely exhale will help set up some lumbar stability for you as well. Let's take a rest, switching over to the other side. So try and straighten the leg. Only bring the leg in as close as you can keep the knee lengthened. So don't try and bring it too close and bend at the knee, or you'll lose that stretch through those hamstrings that we're trying to achieve here. Focus on your own range and a lovely flow, and again try and ignite those deep core stabilizers. Lovely, and take a rest. Taking it into knee rolls, a fantastic exercise to mobilize the lower back. Starting with the knees and feet together, we're just going to let the knees rock gently side to side. So feet are stacked on their instep and the knees just go to the point where they stay glued together. Try and keep the shoulders down on the mat so you're not rocking through the upper body. This should give you a lovely release through the lower back, but you may feel it through the front of the hip if you're particularly tight there as well. Focus on the breath, lovely breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. Taking it now into a walking elephant, which is a lovely stretch through the back of the calves. So from all fours, pushing the heels back and then walking on the spot. So you're really pushing down into the heel. You feel that lovely stretch travel up the back of the calf, potentially through the back of the knee, up through the hamstrings. Both heels down and you're trying to roll up. Remember, you can soften the knees if you're particularly tight through the hamstrings or the lower back. Here we have a range of standing releases for the shoulder and upper body. We're going to start with a side stretch. So we're releasing up and over. So taking one foot across, keeping that foot in front as you let the arms reach up and over. Think lift from the rib cage. Let's swap to the other foot. And again, taking that deep breath in as you exhale, lift up and over. And switching arms. So a nice release for the rib cage, take the pressure off the lungs and give them some space to expand. Let's think about our upper shoulder area now, that rotator cuff area. We're just going to do a dumb waiter. So elbows are in, we're squeezing round and back and then taking it into a neck stretch. Remember, don't pull on the head, think about lifting and lengthening out of the neck area. Again, opposite hand down, reaching up and over, and try and use your breath to relax into these neck stretches. You can increase it by drawing the shoulder round and down and back. Just releasing off with a few gentle shoulder rolls and we should feel much more released and relaxed.